Barbara Rodriguez, Des Moines Register, published 8:09 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time, August 20, 2019. TIPTON, ear. When Pete Buttigieg wants to practice his Christian faith on the road, the Democratic presidential candidate sometimes attends services at the nearest Episcopal church he can find. If pressed for time, he always does what he calls scriptural mediation on a phone app. The South Bend, Indiana, mayor also makes room for his faith in the town halls, meet and greets and other events that make up the campaign trail. Time to establish once and for all that God does not belong to a political party, the Democrat told a crowd in eastern Iowa this month. Scripture tells us that we ought to lift up those most in need, he continued. Concern ourselves with the poor. Identify with the prisoner. Welcome the stranger and love our neighbor. We are not seeing that in Washington today. And people of faith need to know they have a choice when it comes to what kind of moral, as well as political leadership, we're going to send to Washington. Buttigieg has highlighted his faith on the trail since the earliest days of his campaign for president, but he's seen a noticeable uptick in people asking or commenting about it. Many approach him at rope lines after an event. It makes me think that there's kind of a need that's been going unmet, Buttigieg told the Des Moines Register. A desire for somebody to vocalize this idea that faith can lead you in a different direction politically. People have been looking for something a little more genuine. In his 2019 memoir, Shortest Way Home, One Mayor's Challenge and a Model for America's Future, Buttigieg wrote about growing up in South Bend and attending St. Joseph High School, a Catholic school up the hill from his home. This offered its own sort of political education, he wrote. At St. Joe, we were brought up not only to learn church doctrine on matters like sexuality and abortion, but also to understand the history of the church as a voice for the oppressed and downtrodden. Buttigieg, an only child, often visited the campus of the University of Notre Dame, the private Catholic university where both his parents were professors. But he explored different religious beliefs during college and early adulthood. He began attending services at the Cathedral of St. James when he moved back to South Bend to seek public office, just a few years before he announced he is gay. Other candidates, including U.S. Sens. Cory Booker of New Jersey and Kamala Harris of California, have staffers or volunteers doing faith outreach in Iowa or other early voting states. Booker in particular is known for talking on the trail openly about his Christian faith, and both Harris and U.S. Sen. Kirsten Gillibrand have visited churches during their Iowa visits. Bobby Hancock, a teacher and political activist in Council Bluffs, credits the way Buttigieg talks about his faith as part of the reason she plans to caucus for him next February. Hancock, a Christian, said she was a longtime Republican but left the party after the 2016 election of President Donald Trump. She registered as a Democrat recently, after feeling disillusioned with Trump, his policies and how some evangelical Christians had stood by the president. According to the Pew Research Center, 77% of Iowans identify with some denomination of Christianity. I just think there's been a lot, over the years, of conflating Christian faith and Republicans, the 43-year-old Hancock said, and so people have been looking for something a little more genuine, a way to build connections to people. Buttigieg often highlights his faith when talking about his support of immigrants. At a meet and greet at a coffee shop in Oskaloosa as part of his recent 3-day swing through the state, a woman identified herself as an immigrant who feels fearful of being in public even though she has documentation to be in the country legally. Buttigieg, whose father though was born in Malta, told the woman he wants to create a clear pathway to citizenship and more support to immigrants crossing the border. What I will do, again, as president is make clear that you being here is not something we regard as a favor. It is a blessing that you are bringing to us. We are glad that you are here and we support you in that journey, Buttigieg said, drawing loud applause. Buttigieg made a similar point in Muscatine, which is nestled in a county with a high percentage of Latino residents. There are so many scriptural teachings about welcoming the stranger, Buttigieg said. Rob Sand, Iowa's state auditor, often brought up his faith on the campaign trail ahead of his 2018 election win. Sand, a Democrat, is undecided in the caucus primary. At the end of the day, a lot of people are looking for someone to represent them, Sand said, and if they are people of faith and that is a big part of their life, then showing that you have that in common can be a way to build connections to people. Still a work in progress in some ways, Buttigieg is trying to harness the enthusiasm over faith that he's experiencing on the trail. He hired recently the Reverend Shauna Foster as a National Faith Outreach Director, according to the campaign. A Unitarian Universalist minister, Foster is expected to organize how Buttigieg engages with religious groups. Buttigieg told the Register the outreach strategy is still being developed. That's still a work in progress in some ways, but it includes everything from making sure that we have a presence in churches, to just seeking out people who are really working in faith-oriented activism that often aligns with progressive values, he said. Buttigieg emphasized the importance of separation of church and state. Honor that, and honor the idea that we speak to people of any faith and people who are not religious, he said. And at the same time, really lean into the idea that religious values can point you in a progressive direction. Shelley Servadio Elias touched the cross she wore around her neck as she talked about Buttigieg. She's undecided on who she will caucus for, but she's a fan of how Buttigieg talks about faith. I love that, the 48-year-old said. As a Christian woman, I don't believe that we should put the Bible in a box or put people in a box. I believe everybody should have their own personal, unique relationship with God. Jake Cunningham, a 28-year-old from Muscatine, wore a rainbow-colored pin with Buttigieg's face as he waited with his mother to meet the candidate. Cunningham said Buttigieg's religious background resonates with him. I'm a left-handed, gay Episcopalian too, so who am I going to vote for? Cunningham said with a laugh. Barbara Rodriguez covers the Iowa State House and politics for the Register. She can be reached by email at bcrodriguez@registermedia.com or by phone at 515-284-8011. Follow her on Twitter at @BeatRodriguez. Let's block ads. Why?